The stars themselves seemed to bow before the Velcran dominion. For 3,000 years, their warships had crossed the black void between worlds, crushing anyone who dared resist. 47 star systems belonged to them now. Countless billions lived under their rule, some willing, most not. The Velcrans did not care either way. Power was all that mattered, and they had more power than any other species in the known galaxy. Admiral Dexrel stood on the command deck of his flagship, the Eternal Fang. He was old by Velcran standards. His scales darkened by centuries of space travel and war. Behind him, hundreds of officers worked at glowing consoles, managing the 200 warships under his command. This was the Third Conquest Fleet, and they had never failed a mission. Never retreated. Never lost. A junior officer approached, his scales still bright with youth. He carried a data tablet that glowed with blue symbols. Admiral, the final reports on the target world have arrived. Dexrel took the tablet without looking at the young officer. His eyes scanned the information quickly. A small planet, third from its yellow star. Mostly water. One dominant species. They called themselves humans. The report showed images of their primitive vessels floating in the space near their moon. Crude metal constructions powered by chemical rockets. No energy shields. No plasma weapons. No faster-than-light engines? The Admiral laughed. It was a harsh sound that made several nearby officers flinch. This is what the Supreme Council worried about? These creatures barely know how to leave their own atmosphere. They do have nuclear weapons, Admiral, the young officer said carefully. The reports show they have split the atom and created bombs of significant yield. Dexrel waved his hand dismissively. Nuclear weapons. How quaint. The Altherans had nuclear weapons when we conquered them. So did the Kresh, so did a dozen other species we now rule. He handed the tablet back. Nuclear weapons mean nothing to proper shields and armor. These humans will surrender the moment they see our fleet. If they have any intelligence at all, they will not even try to fight. The young officer bowed and retreated. Dexrel returned his attention to the main view screen. It showed the vastness of space ahead, stars scattered like dust across black cloth. Somewhere out there, invisible at this distance, was Earth, a world about to learn what it meant to face the Velcran dominion, what Dexrel did not know. What none of the Velcrans knew was that human eyes had been watching them for a very long time. In the cold darkness beyond Neptune, Commander Teeman Park stood on the bridge of a vessel that did not appear on any Velcran sensor. The S Indomitable hung in space like a sleeping giant, its hull dark and silent. Around it, hundreds of other human warships waited in the same silent darkness. Teeman watched the holographic display showing the approaching Velcran fleet. Each enemy ship was marked with precise data on its size, weapons, and capabilities. Human listening posts scattered across nearby star systems had been tracking the Velcrans for months. Every communication had been intercepted and decoded. Every battle plan had been studied. The humans knew exactly what was coming. "They still think we're primitives," said Lieutenant Jiho, standing beside Teeman at the tactical station. He was younger than the commander, but his eyes held the sharp focus of someone who had trained for this moment his entire life. "Their formation is lazy. They're not even running full sensor sweeps." Teeman nodded slowly. "Good, let them stay confident. The longer they believe we're helpless, the better." He touched a control on his chair. "All ships maintain stealth protocols. No active sensors. No communications except on secure quantum channels. Let them think they're alone." Across the solar system, thousands of human personnel received the same message. On Luna Station, Lieutenant Sumin Choi monitored 300 warships from her operations center. Each ship was a masterpiece of technology that the Velcrans could not even imagine. Engines that bent space itself. Weapons that manipulated fundamental forces of the universe. Shields that could withstand the heart of a star, but all of it remained hidden. All of it stayed dark and silent. Earth's orbital stations continued their normal operations, deliberately broadcasting primitive radio signals. The decoy ships near the moon puttered about on their simple chemical engines. playing their role in humanity's grand deception on Earth itself. Billions of people went about their daily lives, most unaware of the threat approaching from the stars. Only a select few knew the truth. Only those in the Earth Defense Network understood what was about to happen. They had prepared for this day for decades, running simulations and war games, building weapons and training soldiers. Now the moment had finally arrived. Dr. Minji Han sat in a conference room deep below the surface of Geneva. Around her, representatives from every major nation watched the same tactical displays. They saw the Velcran fleet growing closer with each passing hour. They saw humanity's hidden forces waiting in perfect silence. Nobody spoke. There was nothing left to say. Every plan had been made. Every strategy had been reviewed. Now they would see if 3 centuries of preparation had been enough. "They'll arrive in 6 hours," someone said quietly. "Should we evacuate the cities?" "No," replied General Kwang, a gray-haired man who had commanded Earth's space forces for 20 years. "An evacuation would be detected? It would tell them we know they're coming. We maintain normal operations until the moment of contact." Minji felt a chill run through her. Billions of lives hung in the balance, and they were betting everything on surprise. If the plan failed, if humanity's technology proved insufficient, Earth could be conquered before they could mount a proper defense. But if the plan succeeded, if the Velcrans had truly underestimated humanity as completely as all evidence suggested, then the galaxy was about to learn a very hard lesson about judging species by appearances. Back in space, Vexrol reviewed the attack plan one final time. They would emerge from hyperspace at the edge of the system and broadcast a surrender demand. If the humans resisted, which he doubted they would, the fleet would advance and begin orbital bombardment of military targets. The operation would take perhaps a day, maybe 2 if the humans were particularly stubborn. Then Earth would belong to the Dominion, another jewel in their vast collection of conquered worlds. The Admiral looked around his command deck with satisfaction. His crew was efficient and well-trained. His ships were powerful and reliable. Nothing could stand against them. The Velcrans were masters of war, and these primitive humans were about to learn that lesson in the most brutal way possible. "All ships report ready, Admiral," his tactical officer announced. "Hyperspace jump in 30 minutes. "Excellent," Vexrol said. He settled into his command chair, already imagining the commendations he would receive for adding another world to the Dominion. Perhaps the Supreme Council would even grant him governorship of this new territory. Earth had resources, after all. Water and minerals and billions of potential slaves. It would be a profitable conquest. In the darkness beyond Neptune, Teeman watched the countdown timer on his display. 29 minutes until the Velcrans arrived. 29 minutes until humanity stopped hiding and revealed what they had truly become during their centuries in the shadows. He felt calm, almost peaceful. This was what he had trained for, what his parents had trained for, what generations of humans had worked toward in secret. "All stations, prepare for combat operations," he said quietly. "When they arrive, we follow the plan exactly. No deviations. No improvisation. We show them exactly what happens when someone mistakes patience for weakness." The timer continued its countdown. In 29 minutes, the Velcran Dominion would learn that humanity was not prey. In 29 minutes, the galaxy would discover that Earth had teeth and claws sharper than anyone had imagined. In 29 minutes, everything would change. The space around Earth shimmered and tore. One by one, 200 Velcran warships emerged from hyperspace in perfect formation. Each vessel was enormous, dwarfing anything humans had ever built according to Velcran intelligence. Their hulls glowed with the purple energy of their shield systems. Weapon ports bristled along their sides like the spines of some deep-sea creature. They arranged themselves in a threatening pattern that had intimidated dozens of species before. Admiral Vexrol smiled as his fleet settled into position. The human homeworld hung before him on the main view screen, a beautiful blue and white marble floating in the black. He could see the primitive satellites orbiting it, the simple space stations, the crude vessels moving between the planet and its moon. Everything matched the reports perfectly. These humans had no idea what real power looked like. "Open all broadcast channels," he commanded. "I want every receiver on that planet to hear this." His communications officer worked quickly. Within moments, the Admiral's face was being transmitted across every frequency, in 17 different languages that human broadcasts had revealed. The message was simple and had been used countless times before. "Humans of Earth, I am Admiral Vexrel of the Velcrin Dominion. Your world now belongs to us. You will surrender immediately and accept our rule. Your weapons will be turned over to us. Your governments will dissolve. Your people will serve the Dominion. If you comply, you will be treated fairly. If you resist, we will demonstrate why resistance is futile. You have 1 hour to respond with your unconditional surrender." Vexrel sat back in his chair, confident and comfortable. Around him, his officers began routine scans of the planet, cataloging its defenses, such as they were. The humans had missiles, certainly. Perhaps some orbital weapons platforms. Nothing that could threaten even one of his ships, let alone 200. "Admiral," his communications officer said hesitantly, "we are receiving a response. Already? Perhaps they are smarter than they look." Vexrel gestured. "Put it on screen." The view screen shifted. Instead of the planet, it now showed a human female sitting in what appeared to be a command chair. She was young by human standards, with dark hair and eyes that seemed almost amused. Behind her, other humans worked at stations that looked surprisingly sophisticated. But Vexrel dismissed this. Appearances meant nothing. What mattered was capability. "Velcrin vessels," the human said calmly. Her voice was steady and clear. "I am Captain Hannah Lee of the Earth Defense Network. You have entered our space without authorization. You have threatened our world and our people. You have exactly 1 hour to reverse course and leave this system. This is your only warning." For a moment, complete silence filled the Velcrin command deck. Then Vexrel began to laugh. It started as a chuckle and grew into a full-throated roar. Around him, other officers joined in. The idea that these primitive creatures thought they could threaten the Velcrin Dominion was absurd. It was like an insect threatening a giant. "Your only warning?" Vexrel managed to say through his laughter. "You primitive fool. Do you not see my fleet? Do you not understand what is about to happen to your world?" He leaned forward. "I will personally oversee your planet's subjugation. I will make certain you understand the price of arrogance." He gestured sharply to his tactical officer. "Advance the fleet. Charge all weapons. If they want to see what real power looks like, we will show them." The 200 warships began moving forward. Closing the distance to Earth, their weapon systems hummed with building energy. Plasma cannons charged. Missile bays opened. This would be a demonstration the humans would never forget. Those who survived, anyway. "Admiral," his sensor officer said suddenly. The amusement had vanished from his voice, replaced by confusion. "I am detecting multiple contacts. They are appearing throughout the system." "What?" Vexrel stood. "What do you mean, appearing?" "Unknown ships are decloaking. I count hundreds. No, wait, thousands. Admiral, there are thousands of contacts appearing on sensors. Their energy signatures are—" The officer fell silent, staring at his displays in disbelief. Captain Hannah Lee appeared on screen again. The amusement was gone from her face now. In its place was something cold and hard. "Your hour has been reduced to 30 seconds. Leave now or stay forever." Vexrel felt something he had not experienced in decades, uncertainty, doubt. He looked at his sensor displays and saw what had shocked his officer into silence. Human ships were appearing everywhere, emerging from stealth systems that should not exist. They filled the space around Earth, near the Moon, in the asteroid belt, near the outer planets. Thousands of vessels, each one radiating energy that made his flagship look like a child's toy. "This is impossible," he whispered. And then louder to his crew. "This is some kind of trick. Sensor ghosts, illusions, they are trying to frighten us." But his officers' faces told him they did not believe that. Neither did he, really. These were solid contacts. Real ships. And they were everywhere. Pride and anger overrode caution. Nexrol had not built his reputation by retreating from primitives. He had not conquered worlds by being frightened of sensor readings. All ships, open fire? Destroy these illusions. 200 Velcrin warships unleashed everything they had. Plasma cannons blazed across the void. Energy beams lanced through space. Missiles streaked toward human vessels in the thousands. It was enough firepower to annihilate any fleet in known space. Enough to crack planets. Enough to boil oceans. The human ships did not move. They did not dodge. They simply sat there in space, absorbing the entire barrage. When the light and fury faded, when the sensors cleared, every single human vessel remained exactly where it had been. Not one showed any damage. Not one had even moved. Impact confirmed on all targets, the tactical officer reported, his voice hollow. 0 damage detected. Their shields did not even fluctuate. On the Indomitable, Commander Tiemann watched the Velcrin attack with complete calm. Around him, his crew worked with quiet efficiency. Lieutenant Jiho studied his tactical displays, tracking every shot the Velcrins had fired. Enemy attack complete, Jiho reported. Total damage to the fleet is 0. Shields holding at 99.8% across all vessels. Tiemann nodded once. Return fire. Minimal yield weapons. I want most of their ships disabled, not destroyed. We need prisoners for intelligence gathering. Understood, Jiho said. His fingers moved across his controls. Throughout the solar system, human warships began to respond. Admiral Nexrol saw death approaching on his sensors. Thousands of human ships opened fire simultaneously. But these were not the crude kinetic weapons or primitive missiles he expected. These were weapons that operated on principles Velcrin science had never encountered. Beams that ignored shields and struck directly at hull metal. Projectiles that seemed to teleport through armor. Energy fields that crushed ships like invisible hands. The Third Conquest fleet began to die. Ships exploded as their reactors were surgically struck. Others went dark as their power systems were systematically disabled. A few tried to flee, their engines pushing them toward the edge of the system, but human ships were impossibly fast. They caught the Velcrins before they could even begin to charge their hyperspace drives. Nexrol gripped his command chair as his flagship shuddered under impacts. Around him, consoles exploded. Officers shouted damage reports that blended into a wall of chaos. The mighty Eternal Fang, which had led the conquest of a dozen worlds, was being torn apart by weapons it could not defend against. Shields failing. Hull breaches on decks 5 through 12. Weapons offline. Engines at 30%. The reports came faster than Nexrol could process them. On his view screen, Captain Hannah Lee watched with cold eyes. "We warned you," she said simply. The battle, if it could even be called that, lasted 17 minutes. When it ended, 70 Velcrin ships had been disabled and captured. The rest were debris, expanding clouds of metal and frozen atmosphere. Not a single human vessel had sustained damage. Beyond the need to recharge their shields, Admiral Nexrol sat in his damaged command chair, watching his life's work crumble around him. The great Velcrin Dominion, master of the galaxy, had been crushed by a species they thought primitive. He had led 200 ships into this system. Now, less than a third remained, and all of those were crippled and surrounded. "All Velcrin vessels, stand down and prepare to be boarded," came the human transmission. "Any further resistance will result in your immediate destruction." Nexrol wanted to give the order to fight on, to die with honor rather than surrender. But as he looked around his bridge at the young officers who looked to him for leadership, at the crew who had followed him across the stars, he could not do it. He had led them into this disaster through arrogance and pride. He would not compound that by leading them into pointless death. "All ships," he said quietly, his voice heavy with defeat. "Stand down. Surrender to the humans." Throughout the remnants of the Third Conquest fleet, Velcrin ships went dark, their weapons offline. Their shields dropped. They hung in space like dead things, waiting for whatever the humans would do next. The mighty Dominion had tested Earth's defenses and learned a terrible truth. Humanity was not prey. They were predators who had been hiding in the dark, waiting for someone foolish enough to attack them. That wait was over. The boarding pods hit the Velcrin flagship with precise thuds that echoed through its damaged corridors. Each pod carried 12 human soldiers in powered armor that made them look like machines more than living beings. The pods cut through the outer hull with focused energy beams, creating perfect circular entrances. Within seconds, human marines poured into the Eternal Fang like a flood of steel and determination. Major Dongyun Quan led the first squad through the breach. His armor's sensors painted the interior of the ship in perfect detail, showing him every corridor, every room, every Velcrin soldier scrambling to mount a defense. The enemy appeared on his display as red outlines against gray walls. There were 20 of them rushing toward his position, armed with plasma rifles and energy blades. "Contact front," Dongyun said calmly into his squad channel. 20 hostiles, lightly armed. Standard protocol. His soldiers spread out with practiced efficiency, taking cover positions even though their armor could withstand anything the Velcrins had. It was training and discipline, habits built over years of preparation. The Velcrin soldiers rounded the corner and opened fire immediately. Plasma bolts splashed against human armor like water against stone. The shots that would have killed any other species merely left scorch marks that the armor's self-repair systems immediately began fixing. Dongyun waited for the Velcrins to empty their first volley, then gave a simple order: disable only, non-lethal. His soldiers fired stun rounds that dropped the Velcrin defenders instantly. The weapons used focused electromagnetic pulses that scrambled nervous systems without permanent damage. Within 3 seconds, all 20 enemy soldiers lay unconscious on the deck. The humans advanced over them without pause, moving deeper into the ship. Throughout the Eternal Fang, similar scenes played out. Human boarding parties moved through the vessel with terrifying efficiency, encountering resistance at every turn and overcoming it without casualties. The Velcrins fought bravely, but bravery meant nothing against opponents who were faster, stronger, better armed, and better trained. In the ship's medical bay, a group of Velcrin doctors had barricaded themselves with the wounded from the battle. They clutched medical tools as improvised weapons, prepared to defend their patients to the death. When the door burst open and human soldiers entered, the doctors stood their ground. Sergeant Yuna Shin removed her helmet, revealing a young face that seemed out of place on such an imposing figure. She held up her hands, showing they were empty. "We are not here to hurt the wounded," she said in perfect Velcrin language. "We are here to secure the ship. Your patients will receive medical care. You have my word." The Velcrin chief doctor, an old female with scales turned gray by age, stared at Yuna in shock. "You speak our language?" "We have been listening to your communications for a very long time," Yuna replied. "We know your language better than some of your own people. Now step aside. We have field medics who can help stabilize the critical cases." The doctors had no choice. They lowered their improvised weapons and watched as human medics, still in their armor but moving with surprising gentleness, began treating the most severely wounded Velcrins. The humans' medical technology was as advanced as their weapons. Injuries that would have taken weeks to heal under Velcrin care were stabilized in minutes. On the bridge, Admiral Vexrel waited with his remaining officers. They had sealed the command deck, though they all knew it would not matter. If the humans wanted in, they would get in. The Admiral held no weapon. He had ordered his officers to stand down. There was no point in more death. When Major Dongyun arrived at the bridge doors, he did not force them. Instead, he activated the ship's communication system. "Admiral Vexrol, this is Major Quan of the Earth Defense Force. Open your doors and surrender peacefully. You and your crew will not be harmed if you comply." Vexrol looked at his officers. Some were young, barely into their adult years. Others were veterans like him, scarred by decades of warfare. All of them looked to him for guidance. He took a breath and gave his final order as commander of the 3rd Conquest Fleet. "Open the doors. Stand down." The bridge doors slid open. Human soldiers entered with weapons ready but not aimed. Dong-Yun walked to the center of the bridge, removed his helmet, and looked at the defeated admiral. He saw not a monster, but a tired old soldier who had miscalculated badly. Admiral Vexrol, you and your crew are now prisoners of war. You will be treated according to the standards of the Geneva Conventions, which I suspect you know nothing about. In simple terms, you will not be tortured. You will not be executed. You will be given food, medical care, and eventually you will be returned to your people. Dong-Yun paused. But first, you are going to answer a lot of questions. Throughout the captured portions of the Velcran fleet, human forces secured ships and took prisoners with the same systematic efficiency they had shown in battle. On Luna Station, Lieutenant Sumin Choi monitored the entire operation from her command center. Holographic displays surrounded her, each showing different aspects of the boarding actions. All objectives secured, reported one of her subordinates. 70 ships under our control. Approximately 40,000 Velcran prisoners. Casualties on our side, 0. Casualties on their side, minimal, mostly from the initial space battle. The boarding operations resulted in only 300 wounded and 12 dead among enemy forces. Sumin nodded, making notes on her tablet. Begin processing prisoners according to protocol. Separate officers from enlisted. Medical cases get priority. And I want intelligence teams talking to their command staff within the hour. Across the solar system, the debris fields from destroyed Velcran ships drifted in the cold void. Human salvage teams were already moving to collect the wreckage. Every piece of Velcran technology would be studied, analyzed, and cataloged. Not because humanity needed it, but because information was always valuable. On Earth, billions of people watched the news broadcasts in stunned silence. For most of them, this was the first they had heard of an alien invasion. More shocking was the revelation that Earth had a massive military presence in space that nobody knew about. The footage showed human warships that dwarfed anything in the public space program. It showed soldiers in armor that looked like something from science fiction. It showed Earth's forces crushing an alien fleet with casual ease. The questions would come later. The debates about government secrecy, about the resources spent on secret military programs, about humanity's place in a galaxy that apparently contained other intelligent species. But for now, people simply watched in awe as humanity demonstrated. It was not as helpless as everyone thought. In the interrogation room aboard the Indomitable, Admiral Vexrol sat across from Dr. Minji Han. She was a scientist, not a soldier, and her questions were more curious than hostile. Between them sat a recording device that captured every word in both languages. How long? Vexrol asked. How long have you been watching us? Minji consulted her tablet. We detected the first Velcran vessels passing through nearby systems about 80 years ago. We have been monitoring your empire specifically for 63 years. Before that, we were watching other species, learning about the galaxy while staying hidden. The admiral slumped in his chair. 80 years. We thought ourselves so clever, so powerful. And all along you were watching, learning, preparing? Yes, Minji said simply. We saw what happened to species that revealed themselves too early. The Kresh Collective announced their presence and were conquered within a decade. The Valian Republic tried to establish peaceful relations and were enslaved. We decided to take a different approach. By hiding like cowards? Minji's expression did not change. By being smart. By being patient. By making certain that when someone finally found us and decided we looked like easy prey, they would learn a very hard lesson. She leaned forward. Tell me, Admiral, how many worlds has your dominion conquered through surprise attacks? How many species have you enslaved because they were not ready for war? Vexrol said nothing. The answer was obvious. Humanity decided we would not be one of those species, Minji continued. We watched, we learned, and we prepared. Your invasion was not unexpected. We have been planning for exactly this scenario for decades. Different aliens, perhaps, but the situation would be the same. A powerful empire finds Earth and decides to add it to their collection. Except we are not a primitive species waiting to be conquered. We are predators who are waiting for prey to come to us, The admiral looked at the human woman with something approaching respect. What happens now? To me? To my fleet? To the Dominion? That depends on your leaders, Minji said. We have sent them a message. How they respond will determine whether this incident ends with a peace treaty or with the complete dismantling of your military infrastructure. Ethel felt cold fear run through him. The humans could do it. They had the power to destroy the entire Dominion if they chose. 47 star systems, trillions of beings, all at the mercy of a species that had spent centuries hiding in the dark, growing strong, waiting for this moment. What do you want? He asked quietly. Minji smiled slightly. Peace, cooperation, a galaxy where species do not automatically try to conquer each other. But if we cannot have that, we will settle for making certain nobody tries to conquer us ever again. The observation room overlooked the vast expanse of space where the captured Velcrin ships hung like broken toys. Admiral Vexrol stood at the window, his hands secured with energy restraints that were almost invisible but completely unbreakable. Behind him, Colonel Hyun Woo-sung reviewed a data tablet, scrolling through centuries of information. You have been watching us for so long, Vexrol said without turning around. You know everything about us? Our history, our tactics, our weapons. We knew nothing about you. That was intentional, Hyun-woo replied. He was a career intelligence officer, a man who had spent his entire adult life studying alien civilizations. Information is the greatest weapon in any conflict. We made certain the galaxy saw only what we wanted them to see. The door opened and Dr. Minji Han entered, accompanied by 2 guards. She carried several data crystals and a portable holographic projector. Admiral, we are going to show you something. Not to be cruel, but because you need to understand exactly what happened and why. She activated the projector. Images filled the air between them. The first showed Earth as the Velcrins had seen it, with primitive satellites and simple space stations. Then the image shifted, pulling back to reveal the truth. Hidden in the darkness beyond Neptune were massive shipyards. Orbital construction facilities that could build 100 warships simultaneously. Defense platforms scattered throughout the outer solar system, each one capable of destroying fleets. This is what we did not show you, Minji explained. For 300 years, humanity has been building this infrastructure in secret. Every resource, every advancement, every innovation has gone toward preparing for the day someone found us and decided we looked vulnerable. The hologram shifted again. Now it showed the inner solar system. Hidden bases on asteroids. Weapon platforms disguised as mining operations. Thousands of vessels waiting in stealth, invisible to normal sensors. Earth was not a helpless world guarded by primitive satellites. It was a fortress armed with technology that the rest of the galaxy could not match. Vexrol watched in silence. His scales had lost their color, turning dull gray with shock and despair. Everything he thought he knew about humanity had been a carefully constructed lie. The primitive species his intelligence reports described did not exist, had never existed. It had all been theater. How? He finally managed to ask. How did you advance so quickly? Most species take thousands of years to develop proper spaceflight. You should still be crawling between planets in chemical rockets. Minji smiled slightly. We are very good at solving problems when we are motivated. And we were very motivated. Once we detected the first alien signals, once we realized we were not alone in the universe, humanity made a choice. We would either become powerful enough to defend ourselves, or we would be conquered. There was no middle ground. Hyun-woo stepped forward, holding up one of the data crystals. This contains records of every military engagement your empire has fought in the last century. We have watched every battle. We know every tactic, every weapon system, every strategic doctrine you use. He placed the crystal on the table. Beside it, he placed another. This one contains similar data on 17 other major powers in the galaxy. The Kresh Collective, the Valian Republic, the Anther Federation. We have been watching all of them, learning from their successes and their failures. A third crystal joined the others. This contains our analysis of your specific weaknesses. We knew exactly how to fight you before you even entered our solar system. We knew which weapons would be most effective. We knew how you would react to surprises. We knew everything. The X-Roll looked at the crystals like they were venomous creatures. You made us look like children playing at war. Yes, Minji said simply. Because compared to our level of preparation, you were children. You came to conquer a species based on outdated intelligence and arrogance. You paid the price for that mistake. The hologram shifted again. Now it showed human ships in detail. The designs were sleek and efficient, but they incorporated principles that Velcran science had never discovered. Engines that manipulated spacetime itself. Weapons that operated at the quantum level. Shields that existed partially outside normal reality. Our scientists had the advantage of starting later, Minji explained. We did not have thousands of years of established scientific tradition holding us back. When we discovered the basic principles of advanced physics, we had no preconceptions about what was possible or impossible. We simply asked what would work. Then we built it. She pulled up another image. This one showed a timeline of human scientific development. It was terrifyingly fast. Technologies that should have taken centuries to develop had been created in decades. Breakthroughs that other species stumbled upon by accident had been achieved through focused research and almost unlimited resources. Every major nation on Earth contributed, Yunwu added. For once in our history, humanity was united in a single purpose: survival. We put aside our differences, our conflicts, our territorial disputes. Everything was secondary to being ready for the day someone from the stars came looking for us. Vexril turned to face them fully. Why are you telling me this? Why not just destroy us and be done with it? Because we do not want to be conquerors, Minji said. Humanity could have revealed ourselves decades ago. We could have built an empire like yours, taking worlds and enslaving species. But that is not who we want to be. We want to live in a galaxy where species cooperate instead of fighting, where trade and diplomacy replace war and conquest. So you hide until someone attacks you, then you crush them? If necessary, yes. Minji did not apologize for it. We will not be victims. We will not be conquered. Anyone who tries to enslave humanity will learn the same lesson you did. But we would much prefer that lesson never needs to be taught again. The hologram changed once more. Now it showed the Velcran Dominion itself. 47 star systems marked in red. Population centers, military installations, industrial facilities, all of it mapped in perfect detail. We know where everything is, Hyungwoo said quietly. Every shipyard, every fortress, every command center. If we wanted to destroy the Dominion, we could do it. Your military could not stop us. You know this now? Vexrol nodded slowly. It was the truth, and denying it would be foolish. But we do not want to do that, Minji continued. We want the Dominion to change, to stop conquering, to release the species you hold in slavery, to become part of a peaceful galactic community instead of a threat that everyone fears. And if we refuse? Hyunwoo's expression became hard. Then we will make the decision for you. We will disable your military infrastructure. We will liberate every world you control. And the Velcran people will learn what it feels like to be helpless and at the mercy of a more powerful species. The weight of those words hung in the air. Vexrol understood completely. Humanity was offering the Dominion a choice, but only one option led to survival with dignity. The other led to the complete dismantling of everything his species had built over 3,000 years. My people will not accept this easily, he said. The Supreme Council will see it as humiliation. That is unfortunate, Minji replied. But it is also not our problem. We have made our position clear. The Dominion attacked us without provocation. We defended ourselves. Now we are offering terms that are far more generous than your people would offer in our position. The Council can accept these terms or they can learn a harder lesson. She touched a control and the hologram disappeared. You will be returned to your people soon. When you speak to your leaders, tell them exactly what you saw here. Tell them that humanity is not primitive. Tell them that we have been watching and preparing for centuries. Tell them that we will not tolerate aggression, but we are willing to coexist peacefully with those who respect us." Vexrol nodded. He would deliver the message. Whether the Supreme Council would listen was another question entirely, but he suspected they would. The Third Conquest Fleet had been one of the Dominion's proudest military formations. It had been annihilated in 17 minutes by a species that was supposed to be helpless. That fact alone would speak louder than any words. Guards arrived to escort him back to his cell. As he left, Vexrol looked back at Minji and Hyunwoo. "You are either very wise or very naive, offering peace after demonstrating such power. Most species would simply take what they want." Minji smiled. "Most species are not human. We remember what it was like to be weak. We remember our own history of war and conquest and the suffering it caused. We decided to be different. Whether the galaxy appreciates that or not remains to be seen." After the Admiral was gone, Yunwoo looked at his colleague. "Do you think they will accept the terms?" "They will," Minji said confidently. "They are arrogant, but they are not stupid. They have seen what we can do. They know we can destroy them if we choose. Pride is expensive, and the Dominion cannot afford the price of refusing us. And if they do refuse?" Minji's expression became cold. "Then we show the galaxy what happens when someone mistakes our desire for peace as weakness. We have been patient for 300 years. We have been hiding, watching, preparing. If the Velkrans want to be the example that teaches everyone else to leave Earth alone, we will oblige them." The message went out simultaneously to every major civilization within 50 light-years of Earth. It bypassed normal communication channels and appeared directly on government systems, military networks, and public broadcasts. Nobody could ignore it. Nobody could pretend they had not seen it. Captain Hana Lee sat in the main broadcast studio on Luna Station. Behind her, massive screens showed the captured Velkran fleet, the wreckage of destroyed ships, and footage of the brief battle. She wore her uniform with quiet pride, representing not just Earth's military, but all of humanity as it revealed itself to the galaxy. "People of the galaxy," she began, speaking slowly so the translation systems had time to process her words into hundreds of languages. "My name is Captain Hana Lee of Earth. Until today, most of you did not know my species existed. We have been watching you for a very long time, learning about the galaxy while keeping ourselves hidden. Today, that ends." She gestured to the screens behind her. "The Velkran Dominion attacked our world without warning or provocation. They came with 200 warships, believing we were primitive and helpless. They were wrong. In 17 minutes, their invasion force was destroyed or captured. Not because we are violent, not because we seek conflict, but because we refuse to be conquered." The footage shifted, showing human vessels in all their technological glory. Ships that bent space around them. Weapons that operated on principles most civilizations had never imagined. Defense networks that could protect entire star systems. "For 300 years, humanity has been preparing for this moment," Hana continued. "We knew that eventually someone would find us. We knew they would likely see us as weak and vulnerable. We decided we would not be victims. We built this military force not to conquer others, but to ensure nobody could conquer us." She paused, letting that sink in. Across the galaxy, billions watched in stunned silence. Some species had heard rumors of Earth, whispers of a hidden civilization somewhere in the outer regions. Most had dismissed such stories as myths. Now they knew the truth. "Humanity wishes to coexist peacefully with all galactic civilizations," Hana said, her tone becoming firmer. "We have no territorial ambitions beyond our own solar system. We do not seek to build an empire or dominate others. But we will not tolerate aggression. Anyone who attacks Earth or humanity will face the same response the Velkrans received." Behind her, the screens now showed detailed maps of human defensive capabilities. It was a calculated reveal, showing enough to intimidate without exposing all their secrets. Thousands of warships, orbital platforms capable of destroying fleets, Weapon systems that made even the most advanced galactic powers look primitive by comparison. We offer the Velcran Dominion a choice, Hannah continued. Accept peace, reform your empire, and release the species you hold in slavery. Or face the complete dismantling of your military infrastructure. These are the only options. There's no negotiation. There's no middle ground. She stood, the camera following her movement. To the other civilizations watching this broadcast, know that Earth is now a presence in galactic affairs. We will protect ourselves. We will defend the innocent. And we will not hide anymore. How the galaxy responds to our emergence is up to you. We prefer peace and cooperation. But we are prepared for any alternative. The broadcast ended. Within minutes, communication networks across dozens of worlds erupted into chaos. Government officials scrambled to understand this new reality. Military leaders reviewed the footage, calculating and recalculating their chances if they ever faced humanity in battle. The numbers were not encouraging. On the Velcran homeworld, the Supreme Council gathered in emergency session. Admiral Dexrol stood before them, no longer a proud military commander, but a defeated officer bearing terrible news. He had been returned to his people along with the survivors of his fleet. The humans had treated them well, even providing medical care and supplies for the journey home. That generosity somehow made the defeat more humiliating. They knew everything, Dexrol explained to the council. Every tactic we have ever used. Every weapon in our arsenal. Every strategic doctrine. They have been watching us for decades, studying us like scientists study insects. We never had a chance. The Supreme Counselor, an ancient Velcran who had led the Empire for 2 centuries, listened in silence. Around him, other council members argued and debated, some calling for revenge, others urging caution. The counselor raised one hand and silence fell immediately. "How many ships did we lose?" he asked quietly. 130 destroyed, sir. 70 captured and returned to us. And the humans? Dexrol's voice was barely a whisper. 0 casualties. 0 ships lost. They did not even scratch their shields. The silence that followed was absolute. Every member of the council understood what that meant. The Velcran Dominion, which had conquered 47 star systems, had been crushed by a species that revealed themselves only when attacked. The implications were staggering. "We accept their terms," the Supreme Counselor said finally. "We will release our subject species. We will reduce our military. We will become what they demand. Because the alternative is extinction, and I will not lead our people to destruction out of pride." There were objections, of course. Military leaders who wanted to gather every ship and launch a massive counterattack. Hardliners who would rather die than submit to human demands. But the Supreme Counselor was old and wise. He had seen empires rise and fall. He knew when a fight was lost. Within days, the Velcran response reached Earth. They accepted every term humanity demanded. The process of releasing subjugated species began immediately. Military installations were shut down. Weapons were decommissioned. The mighty dominion that had ruled for 3,000 years began the painful process of transformation. 3 months after the failed invasion, Ambassador Yuna Shin stood in the main hall of Galactic Prime, a neutral space station where different civilizations met for diplomacy and trade. She had been chosen to represent Earth in this new era. Young, intelligent, and possessed of a natural diplomatic skill. She would be humanity's face to the galaxy. Commander Teeman accompanied her. No longer just a military officer, but her advisor and protector. Together they walked through corridors filled with aliens of every description. Some species watched the humans with fear. Others with curiosity. A few with barely concealed hostility. "Nervous?" Teeman asked quietly. Yuna smiled. "Should I be? We just destroyed the most powerful military force in known space. What can a room full of diplomats do to us?" "Start wars we would rather avoid," Teeman replied. "Make alliances against us. Turn the entire galaxy into our enemy if we handle this wrong." They entered the Galactic Assembly, a vast chamber where representatives from dozens of civilizations gathered. As Yuna and Timan entered, conversation stopped. Every eye turned toward the humans. Some gazes were friendly. Many were not. The assembly speaker, a tall creature from a species Yuna recognized as the Anther Federation, gestured toward the human delegation. Ambassador Yuna Shin of Earth, you may address the assembly. Yuna walked to the central platform. She did not bring notes or prepared speeches. She simply stood there, looking at the assembled representatives, and spoke from the heart. For 300 years my people hid from you, she began. We watched your wars, your alliances, your conquests. We learned about the galaxy while staying invisible. Some of you may call this cowardice. We call it wisdom. She looked around the chamber. We saw what happened to species that revealed themselves too early. The Kresh Collective was conquered. The Valian Republic was enslaved. Dozens of smaller civilizations were absorbed by larger powers. We decided that would not be our fate. A representative from a species humanity had identified as the Torvan Union stood. So you hid like prey, watching as others fought and died? You did nothing to help the innocent? We did nothing because we were not ready, Yuna replied calmly. Helping others would have revealed our existence before we could defend ourselves. We would have been destroyed, and then we could not help anyone. So we waited. We prepared. And when someone finally attacked us, we were ready. Another representative stood, this one from a species that had suffered under Velcran rule. You forced the Dominion to release us. Why? What do you gain from freeing slaves? Nothing, Yuna admitted. We gain nothing material. But we believe in freedom. We believe species should control their own destiny. The Dominion's empire was built on conquest and slavery. We will not tolerate that, at least not in our region of space. And if other empires continue such practices? Asked a third representative. Will you attack them too? Will Earth become the galaxy's judge and executioner? Yuna shook her head. We have no desire to police the galaxy. What happens in other regions is not our concern unless it directly threatens us or occurs in our neighborhood. But we will not ignore suffering on our doorstep. We will protect those who cannot protect themselves if they ask for our help. The questions continued for hours. Some were hostile, testing humanity's resolve. Others were genuine attempts to understand Earth's intentions. Yuna answered them all with patience and honesty. She made no promises humanity could not keep. She issued no threats unless directly challenged. She presented Earth as a powerful but reasonable new player in galactic affairs.